Astrocast. I'm your host, Drew. Today is Tuesday, March 17th, 2026. Happy new moon to you all. You wouldn't know it in Charlotte because we've had a lot of rain today, but hoping that things clear up soon and we can all take advantage of some of these beautiful dark skies. Speaking of dark skies, starting to look very forward to a trip that I've got planned for June. So hopefully everything works out well. If you're somehow unaware or haven't been paying attention on the show, I wouldn't blame you if you hadn't. I am very much looking forward to a trip in June, hopefully, out to Utah to set up a remote telescope at Astro Observatory. So, you know, this is the time of year where we start getting into galaxy season. And, you know, for us wide field astrophotographers, it's a tricky time because we, you know, can only shoot Markarian's chain so many times. I've already shot the Leo triplet, and don't get me wrong, I love wide field galaxy images. There's something incredible about being able to see hundreds and, you know, sometimes thousands of galaxies in a single image. It really is mind-blowing when you start thinking about the scale of what you are actually looking at. But that being said, it's also quite beautiful and mind-blowing to look at nebula during Milky Way season. So pros and cons to both, of course, but this is usually the time of year when I start looking forward to a dark sky trip. Now, if you're a longtime listener of the show, you'll remember that me and a close friend have made a yearly dark sky trip for at least 3 nights each year in June, sometimes May. But we weren't able to do it last year, unfortunately, because some circumstances that were just out of our hands. I was able to make a dark sky trip up to Wisconsin last summer, late in the summer, for First Light, which was the first unofficial gathering of Astrocast listeners. And man, we had such a good time up there, and I cannot wait to do that again. We've got several listeners that will be meeting up in Europe in June. Actually, when I will be going out to Utah, they will be heading to, I believe, France to meet up and do some observing and astrophotography under dark skies in Europe. So we'll be checking in with our correspondents out in the field when that time arrives, and I'm definitely looking forward to hearing how it goes. I'm hoping that they can scout for a future location for Eurocast meetup, which will be, you know, when we get a larger group of European listeners together. That's tentatively scheduled for 2027 or 2028, so either next year or the year after. I am working on a larger get-together in North America in the meantime. So I've got a lot to catch you guys up on. I got some pretty cool new updates to share with you on the remote rig that I am building and configuring for Astro Observatories, because I will have, as I said, my own telescope out there, which will be, you know, able to access the best data that I'll ever get a chance to get my hands on on a regular basis. But I was off last week. I didn't have a new show, and I had planned on doing a show last week, but I had some kind of crazy, unexpected stuff come up. If you're a member of the Discord, you probably already heard me complain about this, so I apologize if this is secondhand to you. Or second time you're hearing it, rather, not secondhand. Anyway, I had a little kitchen accident last week while here's how it went. So we were out, me and my wife were out shopping, and we were at Target, and she wanted to pick up some treats for the dogs, as we often do. And they really like those sweet potato chips. You can buy them. They're like freeze-dried sweet potato chips, and the only ingredient is sweet potatoes. So, you know, they're good for the dogs. They help with their digestive tract, and they really like them. So win-win-win, right? But it was like $10 for a little bag of them. And I'm like looking at this little bag and I'm thinking to myself, man, how many, you know, sweet potato chips could I make myself just by, slicing sweet potatoes thin and then, dehydrating them in the oven uh, for $10. And I was like doing the math in my head and I could make like 20 bags for the for the price. So I said, let's skip this and we'll pick up some sweet potatoes. And we did. We went to the grocery store later on, picked up a couple of sweet potatoes, and Sunday rolled around last week. So not this past Sunday, but the Sunday before. And Jess was like, "Are you gonna do anything with those sweet potatoes?" I said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." So I went into the kitchen and I'm looking at my knife block and I'm like, you know what would be a good idea? And that was my first mistake. Let me grab the mandolin. So if you are familiar with kitchen tools at all, you're probably aware of what a mandolin is. But if you're not, let me just tell you and describe in briefly what it is. So a mandolin is a device that is basically created by Satan himself, and it is designed to mutilate humans. It also has a side feature of being able to slice vegetables very evenly if you would like to use it for that instead of mutilating yourself. Um, and that's what I had hoped to do was, make sweet potato chips for my dogs. So I peeled the sweet potato, grabbed the mandolin. I set the little safety device aside because who needs that? I don't need to cover up the whole device. That would be difficult. And I started slicing the chips, and they were coming out beautiful and uniform. And I got about, I don't know, halfway through the potato, and I was looking at the guard at that point, which basically is like this thing that you poke into whatever it is that you're slicing, and then it basically covers the entire surface area of the mandolin. And mind you, the mandolin is it's literally like a flat piece of plastic, and in the middle is a razor, a very long razor that goes across. So, when you slide a potato across it, it thinly slices that potato into a chip. If you are easily squeamish, this is the part where you might want to skip ahead a few minutes. So just a little trigger warning for you. Uh, I decided I would not grab the guard, and I just literally right as I kind of made that mental note in my head, she said, "Be really careful, don't cut yourself." And I said, "Oh, I won't." Literally 2 seconds later, I attempt to slice the potato over the mandolin. My hand slips and goes just directly into the razor blade on the surface of the mandolin, and I got it bad. Like I really dug it into that razor blade, and I immediately yanked my arm away and winced and covered it up and just instantly recognized that I'd cut myself. And I told her to like go grab me a Band-Aid right away. Band-Aid. Band-Aid wasn't going to cut it, unfortunately. It was bleeding really bad. And it got me right on my thumb, on my left hand, which is my dominant hand. I'm a lefty, and it's basically like behind on the right hand side of my thumb. So like on the outer part of it, and behind the nail on the side of the thumb, and then past to the knuckle. So it's a good like inch and a half long. And if you bend the knuckle at all, it'll just split right back open. So anyhow, I went into the bathroom, cleaned it as quickly as I could, because God knows I didn't like having it open because it was like bleeding really bad. And I'm not good with cuts, guys. Like I am not the guy. I don't like it. Nope. I don't want nothing to do with them. So I grabbed some bandages that we had, and I grabbed some medical tape, and I basically taped it up as tightly as I could. I just dealt with the pain. It was throbbing, obviously, didn't think much of it. And before bed that night, I thought to myself, I was in such a rush closing that up that I might have not actually closed it up, because when you have a cut like that, you want to pull it together, obviously, either side of, what you've divided. And so I thought, hey, let me go ahead and redress the wound. So I took off the bandage and it was still bleeding really bad. So my suspicion was correct. That's why it was still throbbing really bad, was because I didn't actually close the wound. So this time, even though it was incredibly difficult to do, I felt like I was going to faint at one point. I managed to get the bandage on properly and then pull it tight to where it, cinched up as much as it possibly could. And then, put a bunch of fabric bandage around it and then taped it up really good. I, uh, I realized at that point, like, yeah, I should probably get stitches for this because it was, the worst cut I'd ever had. Um, but I don't do well with needles and I hate going to like the emergency room. I just can't do it. So I was like, you know what? I'll give it a couple of days. And if it doesn't get better, then that's what I'll do. So long story short, to get to the end of this, I waited until Saturday. So just literally a couple of days ago, before I changed the bandage, and I did not move my thumb at all for the whole week. I was incredibly careful about it. And it finally got to the point where like it wasn't throbbing really anymore and there wasn't a whole lot of pain. So I Saturday very carefully undressed the bandage and I had to run warm water under my hand to loosen up the sticky part of the tape, because I was just so terrified I was going to rip it back open. And I was extremely happy to see that it had begun healing properly. You can still see it's like crazy wide. You can see where it was split open. I might have a gnarly scar there for sure. Um, but I cleaned it out. It wasn't infected or anything, thank God, because that was my biggest worry. Because not changing the bandage, that if that gets dirty, that can cause an infection, and you don't want that because I don't want to lose a damn thumb because of a cut. Anyway, it was okay. I cleaned it really well. It appears to be healing okay. The only thing that sucks is I've been playing Elden Ring a lot, and I use a controller to play. And we had just bought this. Me and a buddy of mine had just bought this new game called Marathon, and it's like a mouse and keyboard first-person shooter. You can use a controller too, but I prefer mouse and keyboards when I'm using like a PC first-person shooter. And we got to play it one night before I cut myself. And, being that I'm left-handed, I was just out of commission. I couldn't play it. But, things happen. What can you do? It's finally getting to the point where I can move my thumb a little bit without having to worry about splitting the darn thing open. But let me just tell you, don't mess with mandolins. Like I talked to a lot of friends of mine who are in the, they're either prosumer chefs at home, like Mark, who takes cooking very seriously, friend of the show. And then I talked to some friends who I actually worked with in kitchens over the years, and pretty much every single one of them, without fail, said that they won't have a mandolin in their house because they're just that dangerous. So I threw away the mandolin. I will never touch one again, and I promise you, you should not either. Just don't mess with it. It's not worth it. Knives are so easy to be careful with and not cut yourself with. I've cut myself maybe 5 times in my whole life because my first job was in a restaurant, and the first thing that CJ, the chef at the restaurant, taught me was knife safety, and he really, beat it into me, embedded it in my head, to curl your fingers back when you're cutting, and just all the basic safety that you want to do with knives. And it's very rare for me to cut myself with a knife. I think I've done it less than 5 times in my whole life, but man, oh man, I will never, ever, ever touch a mandolin again. And I would suggest the same to you, dear listener. So yeah, man, it was a rough week for sure. It will go down as the great boo boo of 2026, and hopefully, it will never happen again. In other news, astrophotography related news, I did get my filter wheel. It came in the mail last week, so that's something exciting that I have been looking forward to for quite some time. And I'm actually thinking about making some video content for some of the remote rig stuff, because a lot of questions have come up during the process where people will say, like, how are you going to do this and how are you going to do that? And I can certainly talk about a lot of this stuff on the show, and obviously I do, but I do feel like sometimes like a hands-on video is the best way to describe some of these situations. So that's what I'm hoping to do. Oh, and I forgot to mention earlier, that's pretty much the reason why I didn't make last week's episode, because I was in pain every day. And I really couldn't operate a computer or a mouse or a keyboard properly. It was all finger pecking with my right non-dominant hand. So that's why I wasn't around. But thanks for waiting on me. So with this filter wheel, I, as you may know, if you heard the last couple episodes, I was trying to decide between a 5-bay and 7-bay 2-inch filter wheel. It's about $100 more for the 7-bay. So if I wanted to go that route, I would really need to, justify it financially. And I couldn't really find a good justification for it, considering that I'm doing one-shot color shooting. Obviously there are a lot of different routes I could go. A lot of people will just send, if they're doing one-shot color from a truly, Bortle 1 dark sky, high elevation site, you don't really even need a filter if you've got like a built-in UV IR cut filter into your camera, which the 2600 MC Pro does have. However, there are times when I do feel like there could be a huge advantage to having, access to those filters. First one that comes to mind, obviously, is for darks. So I can put a what they call a dark filter into the wheel, and it's basically just the same size as a threaded 2-inch filter, but it's just solid black, completely opaque. You can't see through it, and that way you can take darks remotely whenever it's dark. So that's a really good thing to have access to on a regular basis. The second thing that I wanted to have access to is dual narrowband. So I still want to be able to do dual narrowband imaging, and I think from Bortle 1 skies, obviously that could be potentially incredible data. And I've already got an L Extreme F2 2-inch variant filter, so that is perfectly suited for that task. Another thing that I want to be able to do is put a UV IR cut filter in. Like I say, I know that I've already got a UV IR cut filter on my 2600, but if I get a nicer one, from some of the things I've read, and I've seen some conflicting reports on this, so I'll probably still do a bit more research before making a final decision on it. I should technically be able to get sharper stars and a better look to my stars with a quality UV IR cut filter versus what is just built into the rig. So, I'll have to read up on that a little bit more, but that's definitely something that I could potentially do as well. And then, obviously, if I ever go mono, I could always move that to a mono rig. But at that point, you probably want to get a 7-bay. So, pros and cons, obviously, but I think if nothing else, being able to go from full broadband to dual narrowband to dark frames is a big deal. So I think the only other thing that I could potentially be looking to put on the rig is going to be a field rotator, because the way that things frame up, I think a field rotator would be very nice to have, especially if I end up shipping 2 cameras along with this scope, because I'm considering sending the 2600 and the 585 so I can have that flexibility and effective focal length, being that the 585 is such a small sensor, it crops in a lot more than the 2600. I will say I've been extremely pleasantly surprised with that SV Bony power box. It's just working great, man. That thing is awesome. So I get to run a single DC cord from my extension cord outside by my pier into the SV Bony power box, and not only does it power my AM3 mount, my camera, autofocuser, well, guide cam's powered USB-C, but all of the telescope devices are powered, as well as my Ryzen 5 mini PC, which is really, really cool, because I was wondering if it would be able to power it, since it's got, DC volt output, and the back of the mini PC has a, DC volt port. A lot of them can be powered on via USB-C as well. I've noticed a lot of the mini PCs have Type-C ports on them. And one thing I wanted to mention to you guys, I know I talked about it a few weeks ago on the show, and I just had something to add. If you remember, One of the issues that people run into a lot of the times when running remote rigs with like Nina and Microsoft Windows, if you're using Windows, whenever you first log in, like say you're using Chrome Remote Desktop, like a lot of people do, and you get logged in, by default, Windows will actually give you a 640 by 480 display, which is just very, very low resolution, and everything is incredibly big. And it's pretty much impossible to work in that kind of environment under everything being that big, because there's so much data that you need to be able to see in something like Nina. Um, and I pretty quickly found out that there are these things that are called dummy HDMI plugs that you can order for like, a 6-pack for $10 on Amazon. So basically the idea is you plug in that HDMI port, and it's just literally, it looks like a thumb drive, a real small device. You plug it in and it tricks Windows into thinking that there is a 4K display plugged in to the mini computer. So that way, when you log on remotely, you no longer get that 640 by 480 resolution, and instead can basically switch the resolution to anything you want up to and including 4K. So one thing that occurred to me is I'm a multiple monitor guy. I love working on at least 2 monitors. My studio setup is actually 3 monitors. So I've got one 50-inch OLED panel, and then I've got 2 23-inch panels to the side that are stacked on top of each other. And that just gives me a lot of flexibility because I'm, usually running quite a few different things at the same time. So I was looking at the mini PC that I have, and I noticed it had an unused display port on the back, which is another very common output for video on computers. And I went and looked it up, and sure enough, they have dummy display ports that you can plug into the device. So if you're logging in remotely to your PC and you would like to have 2 monitors instead of 1, then also pick up a DisplayPort dummy plug. And that way you can plug both in to the device and you're good to go with 2 monitors, which is great. It just gives you more flexibility. And that's really key when you're dealing with a remote setup. You want to have as much flexibility as possible because you never know what you're going to run into. And you're not going to be able to physically be there to unplug a device and plug another one in. Obviously, at Astro Peak, they're going to have on-site support staff there at all times, and you will have credits each month that you can use for things like that. But if I don't have to bother anyone at 2 o'clock in the morning, I would prefer not to. So it's a good thing to have. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually ship my extra ones with my scope. So that way, if one of them craps out on me after 6 months or whatever out in the heat of Utah, they can just unplug it and plug in another one. The other thing that I was thinking about whenever I was trying to pick out a mini PC is the fan situation. So obviously you have to cool electronics. We know this with our cameras. Obviously a cooled astronomy camera is going to produce much lower noise than one that does not have a piezoelectric cooling thermal coupler on it. And computers and CPUs in particular have a very similar mechanism, whereby you would attach a cooler directly to the processor of the computer with something called thermal paste in between the CPU and whatever it is that you're using to cool it. So what I noticed was a lot of these micro PCs actually have fanless design, which means they don't have any fan at all within them. And honestly, out in the summer heat of the desert in a place like Utah, I don't know if Utah is technically desert or not. Sure, it looks like it in the pictures that I've seen. I would be worried to put a fanless PC out there, but I'm really curious if you guys have a remote rig or even a local rig that you run that has a fanless PC. Have you had any issues out of it? Because obviously it would be a huge advantage not having a fan in the computer because fans can cause vibrations if they get dirty, obviously. If you've got a well-maintained fan that is running, properly and doesn't have lint or dust clogging it up, then you really shouldn't notice any trouble. I certainly haven't on my rig yet. But what has your experience been like? Email me at rue@theastrocast.com and let me know what kind of computer you have, if it has a fan or no fan. It's just something to think about. There's so many different problems that you have to solve for when you're setting up one of these remote devices, and that's just yet another thing that comes to mind for me. Now, another thing that came up in our Discord a couple days ago, we were all talking about remote rigs, which has been a big topic as of late because, a lot of our group members have put down deposits to get their spots at Astro Peak. And so we're all kind of bouncing ideas off of each other and saying, does this work? Does that work? Etc. And the ASI Air, we were talking about it and kind of like the pros and cons of using the ASI Air. And I still think like they're, great devices for particular situations. If you have to set up and break down each and every night, then an ASI Air is hands down the way to go, in my opinion, mind you. But if you've got a, more permanently installed rig or a pier that you're working off of, or in particular a remote rig, then obviously Nina or K-Stars would probably be a better option. To that end, Parrish, longtime friend of the show, he's been on the show a couple of times. He was asking Justin about his remote setup and just how exactly it is that he runs his advanced sequencer. So the first time that I got into Nina, and this was, years ago before I even knew what an ASI era was, I was using, astrophotography tool and PhD2 and basically all the standalone applications to handle target selection and guiding and image capturing. And then I found out about Nina and I was like, oh man, this is the way to go, because very much like the ASI Air, it combines all of those things into one interface. But the big advantage, obviously, is that it's much more in depth as far as what you can do. And I mean really in depth. And I think the first thing I noticed was people did not seem to be using the basic sequencer within Nina, which would be like I guess you'd say easy mode for sequencing, probably a little bit closer to the ASI Air in terms of how to set up imaging for a night. Whereas the advanced sequencer, the first time I opened it up a couple months ago, I was kind of immediately taken aback and I was like, oh my gosh, because there's just, so many different options that are thrown right in your face, right off the bat, that honestly, I felt a little bit overwhelmed. And, that's perfectly normal to feel overwhelmed by, technology whenever you're working on something new. That's something I've experienced countless times in the past, but I did want to, really learn how this software works because, obviously I want to be able to use Nina to control everything remotely. And I would like to have a pretty good understanding and idea of how it works before I actually go and drop, my rig off in Utah. So I started poking around in the advanced sequencer and I noticed there's, 3 different categories in the advanced sequencer area. You have your instructions, which is that first thing that I saw that kind of completely overwhelmed me. And basically the way that this works is there is a individual instruction for pretty much everything you can think of that is astronomy related, as far as like controlling your rig. Like, for example, under focuser, there are separate instructions for autofocus after X number of exposures, autofocus after filter change, autofocus after HFR increase, autofocus after temperature change, autofocused after time change, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And you can do this with your dome. You can do this with your guider. You can do this with live stacking. I mean, the options really are endless. And then if you go into plugins, you can actually download even more instructions to, you know, further customize it. So like I understood the idea behind it right away. So like I want to have an instruction to unpark my telescope, and then I want to have an instruction to move to X part of the night sky, and then I want to have an instruction that turns on and starts calibrating my guiding, and then I want an instruction to start cooling my camera, and so on and so forth. But the thought of actually building out that entire sequence, when I'm sitting here looking and I'm like, man, when you start thinking about all of the individual things that a rig does, if you're thinking about it like in a script, you know, sense, it's a lot of different things that happen. And I guess that's why the ASI Air is so popular, because it automates so much of that stuff for you, right? But then I noticed there was a second category right beside instructions, and it says templates. So I click on templates, and they had a couple of default templates that are built in to Nina, and they're okay. And I was looking at them and I'm like, you know, I bet you there's something better out there. So I just went on Google and I did a quick search for Nina templates. And pretty quickly I stumbled across various resources that were sharing their own Nina templates, which are .json, commonly referred to as JSON files, that you can actually download and use yourself. So obviously, you say to yourself, well, why would I want to use somebody else's template? They don't know what target I want to shoot. But that's not how it's set up. The idea is this template could work for any target. You could add in 10 different targets and then kind of customize the template to say, you know, if target A is above 20 degrees and at least 30 degrees away from the moon, shoot it. Otherwise, go to target B. And you can take it way further out than that. And lots of our listeners have. Justin, I'm looking at you. But it's extremely customizable. So the one that I actually landed on, and I'm gonna I'll share this in the show notes. So if you guys want to check it out, you can. It's a creator by the name of Patriot Astro. So his website is patriotastro.com. If you go and have a look there, you will find templates for pretty much every kind of camera that we use. So you'll find mono templates for imaging. You will find one-shot color templates for imaging. So obviously, me being a one-shot color imager, I downloaded the one-shot color template. And he actually has some videos on YouTube where he kind of explains how these templates work and what you want to do. So downloaded the template, extracted the folders, and then I loaded it into Nina by going to the templates area and clicking on import template. And it's so beautifully laid out the way that he's done this. And I'll say at first, again, it kind of looks overwhelming. You're like, oh my God, look at all these instructions. But then you start looking at it piece by piece, starting at the very top. And he has actually written instructions and little tips and tricks along with each and every instruction that says exactly what it's doing. So there's annotations for each instruction, in other words. And that is just so enlightening and so great. And I really applaud Patriot Astro for putting these out there for free for anyone to use, because for me, it really made everything click as far as the instructions in Nina. And I can tell you, this is what I used to start imaging the Leo triplet recently. So I wanted to image the Leo triplet because Leo is obviously coming into focus earlier and earlier. I wouldn't say we're like, well, we're definitely in galaxy season, but we're not in peak galaxy season yet. That's usually like April when Leo's, you know, right at the meridian when you go out at night. But he's getting there. And without having to make too many changes, I set safety limits in Nina for my rig. So basically, it just knows at a very low level to never go below 15 degrees on the horizon. And I basically just went in and read step by step through these templates that Patriot Astro had provided. And I just changed things to suit my needs. So I changed like the for sequencing, I did 180 seconds instead of 120, which was the default because I prefer 180 seconds. I had to change a couple of things for how the guiding was set up, which was super easy to do. And these are mainly things like just making sure that you have the correct resolutions entered in for your particular telescope, which is easy information to figure out. You can go to like astronomy tools online to calculate all that with their calculator. And man, the end result was just wonderful. It was wonderful because I was able to very minimally change things in this sequence. And then I can just literally drop any target into it and then press play and walk away. And even if that target's not in the sky yet, like let's say it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon, the day that you're planning to image that night, I can press play on that target. And since the scope knows that it's 12 o'clock in the afternoon and it's sitting in the home position, it's not even gonna swivel or slew rather swivel. It's not even going to slew to the area of the sky yet because it knows it's too early, because again, that is what the instructions are programmed to do, which is just really awesome. So I won't go like step by step through all of these instructions because frankly, I don't think it would be a good use of time. But I would highly, highly, highly encourage you to do it. Even if you're not on Nina yet and you're just thinking about dipping your toes into it, check out some of the links that I put in the show notes. I'll link to some of the images that just show you the view that you will get in Nina once you load into the target. Into the advanced sequencer. And you can kind of look and see what I'm talking about and read the annotations yourself. And man, it's really cool, guys. It's so cool. And this is definitely how I am going to go about automating my rig, because, once you fully understand what this template is doing and have it set up to work for your particular, scope, then you can just start adding little customizations here and there, like for example, you can have target start conditions. So don't start until, and you can actually set things like astronomical darkness. So, if you've ever started imaging right at sundown on a target and you're shooting, let's say 3-minute exposures of a galaxy, let's not say galaxy, let's say a nebula. And as it gets darker and darker, like let's say it's 9 o'clock at night, early summer, Northern Hemisphere, and you start imaging your target, and then obviously you go all night long, you shoot all night long, right? So the next day you get all your files and you load them into PixInsight and you open up Blink and you start flipping through your images. What you have undoubtedly seen before is that you will flip through the first 30 images or so and notice them getting darker and darker and darker until they finally get to where they're dark enough to be usable subs. And we can debate whether or not, subs that have some light in them are still usable or not. That's not what I'm here to debate, though. My point is, if you had Nina set up to automate it correctly, you would have never taken those pictures in the first place because it wouldn't have started shooting until you got to true astronomical darkness, which is really, really cool. And again, that's just like one tiny example of what it can do. You can set up loop conditions, which are really cool because that's where you can put in different targets. So like I said before, if you wanted, you could have 10 targets loaded up at any given time. and then it's going to check for all of these conditions, and then you can prioritize them based on those conditions. And like, you know, you can have like, if Lagoon Nebula is your number one target, but you know that it's only up, you know, so high in the sky for this amount of minutes, you can tell Nina, you know, as soon as the Lagoon Nebula is available higher than 15 degrees in the sky, drop everything that you're doing and go image that. And it'll do it, you know, and it's just really, really, really cool. And it's exciting because I've been using the ASI error for so long at this point that I kind of forgot how incredible Nina really is. And it's fun to sit down and learn something new in astrophotography because it's been a minute, you know. I mean, obviously we're always learning in this hobby, but one of the things that, you know, has been a trend in astrophotography, and I don't know if it's for good or not yet. The jury's still out, but making things easier, you know. And this is a tale as old as time. You know, the old timers are always saying, you know, oh, you have no idea how easy you had it, you know, da 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 da. And I've talked to people at GHRO, you know, the Club Observatory, that can tell you about, you know, manually guiding on targets with, you know, film. So you want to talk about difficult, that's difficult. But, you know, with smart telescopes and the ASI Air, my only worry is like, for me, it's a lot more than just astrophotography. And don't get me wrong, I love astrophotography, but like, I consider myself an astronomer first. And, you know, knowing the night sky and knowing constellations and knowing how to star hop and knowing what a magnitude means and knowing, you know, when certain things are in the sky at what point of the year, you know, all of that stuff is just, to me, it's fundamental to the hobby. And if you automate everything, then do you really learn anything? All right, guys. In other news, unfortunately, kind of sad news. It looks like Reflect Orbital, the old Mr. Burns of astronomy. If you don't remember, a few months ago, we talked about this on the show. They are the company that wants to launch giant mirrors into space and reflect sunlight down to the earth on demand all night long, every night, which would, without a doubt, destroy astronomy as we know it today. There has been a lot of movement in this area in recent weeks. There's actually a change.org petition that has been cycling around astronomy communities that I saw today. I'm going to link to that in the show notes, and I implore all of you to please go sign it and call your local representatives and let them know that this is a terrible idea. A little bit of good news is it does look like the American Astronomical Society has actually petitioned the FCC to put a complete denial against Reflect Orbital's request. Now, I'm not going to get into politics. The show isn't about politics, but I don't know how well that's going to go in the current environment that we find ourselves in. I have no idea if anyone high up in the FCC has any understanding whatsoever about how dark skies function, how important it is that we have them, not just for astronomy, circadian rhythms, animal life. So many things are impacted by our night skies, which have already been, you know, majorly disrupted by light pollution that we find, you know, in 90% of urban environments in the world. But this is just a whole new level of evil. You're talking about, you know, football field sized patches of light scanning across the ground. I mean, with the speed at which satellites are launched nowadays, I mean, you see there's another launch every other day, it seems like, right? They could very, very quickly launch a lot of mirrors if people are dumping money into this. And it could literally destroy astronomy as we know it. So there wouldn't be anywhere safe to hide. You know, it could impact you no matter where you go, whether it's your backyard or your dark sky site. So I'm really, really, really hoping that the FCC will pay close attention to this and deny the request of Reflect Orbital to construct and launch non-geostationary orbit satellite. It's the very first one that they want to launch. It's their test one, if you will. You know, the whole thing that just completely flummoxes me about this is we don't do solar energy good on the ground. And it costs so much money to launch something into space still, just like I talked about with Rick and Jeff a couple weeks ago on the show. How on earth could it be a better return on investment to launch a mirror into space than it would be to just build more solar panels on the ground and use them for the daylight hours that we have? I can't understand how that's, you know, a fiscally good idea. It just doesn't compute, because it seems to me that, you know, no matter what you do, if you're having to pay for launching giant mirrors into space, there's just no way that that's going to be more cost effective than building ground-based solar, which, you know, we do have a lot more of these days than we did 20 years ago, obviously, but it's nowhere near where it could be. So if you'd like to read the petition that the American Astronomical Society has sent to the FCC, I will link to that in the show notes as well. You know, I will tell you, though, the problem with stuff like this, let's say that they do get denied by the FCC. What's to stop Reflect Orbital from relocating to a country with a more corrupt government that will just say, yeah, you can launch them from here. Pay us $10,000 for every launch. It's doable. I mean, they'd have to fight international law to get it taken down, right? So I don't know, man. I don't like the looks of this. I don't have the heart to watch any of the interviews with this guy, because I feel like my blood would boil if I heard the CEO talking about, oh, here's daylight at 11 o'clock at night, you know, in the middle of the winter. How wonderful is that, you know? Because that it quite literally angers me just thinking about it. So if I put a face to those thoughts, it's just going to be 10 times worse. Sign the petition, you know, change.org petition. I'm not saying it'll do anything, but it certainly doesn't help to try. And more importantly, though, call your local representatives. I am absolutely going to be emailing and calling mine tomorrow, because this is insane. If we allow billionaires to commoditize space and who can have darkness, then we're just cooked. Like, as a society, we are cooked. They already control so much of what we can say and do, this elite class of billionaires. Imagine if they can control daylight. It's a scary thought, you know? It really is. I mean, look at something like Starlink, right? Satellite internet. We've all seen the Starlink launches, and, you know, we all have mixed feelings about the technology because, We understand that it's annoying having Starlink satellites constantly come in and out of frame, but at the same time, it's very important for war-torn countries to have access to internet that is otherwise unavailable from ground-based systems. But the only problem with that is when a non-politician, unaffiliated billionaire controls all of those systems, they get to pick and choose who gets internet. And that's not good because it's already happened in Ukraine. They actually lost their internet connectivity early on in the war after a favor was called in by Russia. So it's scary. I don't like thinking about daylight during the night. I think it's like, we throw around terms like dystopian future a lot. I think I'm guilty of it. I know you've probably said it at one point or another. And usually it's an overreaction to something. But I can't think of much that's more dystopian than looking outside at 2:00 in the morning and seeing daylight. That's terrible, man. That is just absolutely terrible. I won't stand for it. I know that you guys won't. So let's put our collective heads together as one Astrocast family and reach out to our local government representatives, write the FCC, and let them know why this is wrong. Like I say, I'll link to the paper from the American Astronomical Society. I think they lay out a very good case for why this is a terrible idea, and they do it in a very short 12 pages. I would encourage you to give that a read if you need a little bit of thought why this is a terrible idea before you reach out to anyone. I don't need to tell you though, man. If you make daylight come during the nighttime hours, you've ruined. Oh man, that is some truly ruinous technology right there. And I don't throw that around lightly, but that would be one of the worst case scenarios for the world, in my opinion. Real quick, while we're talking about dystopian technologies, did you guys check out deflock.org yet? I don't remember if I talked about this on the show or not a couple weeks ago, but look up deflock.org when you get a chance. They're basically cameras that are in nearly every major city in the United States and quite possibly outside of the United States as well. And they take pictures every time you drive by, and they don't just identify your license plate. They identify the year, make, and model of your truck. They identify if you've got a ladder rack. They identify if you've got any bumper stickers, political affiliations. They can identify the income bracket that you're in just based on your vehicle. If you're driving a 1998 Toyota Camry with dents all over it, you're probably not in the upper echelon of earners in this country, and they know that. And then all of this information is provided without a warrant to law enforcement communities that may be requesting it. Now, I'm not saying that a technology like that can't be used for good. Obviously, if a child is kidnapped, we want to be able to locate that child as fast as possible, and having access to technology like this can do it. But at what expense? Because there's already been countless cases of these cameras and this database being used for things like stalking ex-partners who are, in law enforcement, stalking their exes to keep tabs on where they're coming and going. And you might be shocked to learn how close they are to you. I certainly was. There's one of these cameras that is literally less than 5 minutes from my house, and I drive by it every single day. So they've already got me mapped out, you know. And to those of you who would say, well, you already carry around a phone in your pocket, they can already, you know, track where you're going with that. I'm not going to dispute that, but at least I can take my phone out of my pocket and leave it on the counter and hop in my car and drive away if I want. You can't do that anymore. And not only that, but I mean, obviously there are devices that can be used to completely, you know, see everything about your cell phone, including turning the mic on, the camera on. Sorry if I'm sounding like a crazy paranoid person. I'm really not. I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but this is reality. Like, go look it up yourself. Go to dflock.org and check it out. Yeah, I'm talking to our local officials here in Charlotte now, trying to understand why this was approved, because I have, like I say, 5 of these cameras within a 5-mile radius of me. So they're absolutely all over the place. You would be shocked. So go check that out when you get a chance. It's time for
social media stardust.
Man, oh man, do I got a good one for you this week, guys. So this is, I think it might be our first Southern Hemisphere winner. No, it's not. We had the wide field Milky Way shot from the Southern Hemisphere that had the large and small Magellanic Clouds. But I do know this is the first one to be captured from deep sky Chile. So this week's social media stardust winner is Benoit de Mulder, and he posted to the ZWO astrophotography page just an incredible image of the Pencil Nebula, OED1, and that is a supernova remnant in the Vela constellation. So he captured this using a Takahashi FSQ 106 ED refractor and a ZWO ASI 6200 mm, so full frame mono. So absolutely beautiful, beautiful image. It looks like he worked with a friend, Jason Dane, so I'll give him a quick shout out as well. But congratulations to you, Benoit. You'll be entered into the Social Media Stardust contest at the end of this year. There will be a cash prize and a C-Star S50 brought to us by our partners over at Astro Peak Observatories, and who knows what else, because we're going to have other sponsors and vendors affiliated with the show over the year. So definitely look forward to that. But congratulations. It's a absolutely gorgeous image. It's really cool to see Takahashis out in the wild. If you look closely at the image, even though this is a Facebook post, so obviously there's going to be some Facebook compression as always, but it's just gorgeous, man. And it makes me want to get out to Chile and the Southern Hemisphere skies that much more. Really, really, really cool to see. Great image there, Benoit. I hope that you hear this. I commented on the ZWO post, so hopefully you see that and get to have a listen. Congrats. You've done a great job, and definitely keep it up. It certainly looks like you've got the right skies and right equipment to take a lot of award-winning photographs. So congrats to you. Let's get to our final topic of today. So I don't want it to all be doom and gloom. I know that the last segment there was a little bit of a downer, and I apologize for that. But, you know, awareness is important, and we all need to be aware of what's going on in our night skies if we want to be able to truly protect them for future generations. And right now, man, it ain't looking like we're gonna. But I will tell you, I am extremely happy, excited, relieved, and a whole bunch of other words to announce that the Astrocast will be attending NEAF for the first time this year. So NEAF is the Northeast Astronomical Forum. It is the expo for all things astronomy and astrophotography. It takes place in New York in mid-April. So I believe it's It's the weekend around April 11th. So it's taking place on the 11th and the 12th. I've wanted to go to NEAF for years now. I'm sure you guys have heard me talk about it last year and the year before on the show about wanting to go. I think the first year the show was on, it didn't really make a lot of sense to go because I think most people would just be like, "Who the heck are you? What the heck is the Astrocast?" I wanted to go last year, and I think it would have made sense to go last year, but it just was not in the cards because we had a lot of stuff going on. But that being said, I've got a lot of stuff going on this year too, but the way things are going, I just kind of thought I'd be crazy not to go. So I sat down and talked to my wife about it and explained that, it would be a really great growth opportunity for the show to be able to get out on the floor and speak with the literally hundreds of vendors that will be there. So if you're going to NEAF, please make sure to say hi. I'll be out on the floor pretty much all day, Saturday and Sunday, with my wife. I'll have a hat on with an otter in Saturn, outer space, and I'll be wearing an Astrocast shirt. So you won't miss me. If you see the cute girl that you're like, who the heck is that? And why is she with that big hairy man? That's my beautiful wife, Jess. So say hi to her. Make sure to stop by and say hi. And I'm trying to get some cool stuff to give away to listeners that I run into at the show. I think I've got a pretty cool idea, just something small. But if you come up and say hi and just say that you listen to the show, I'll make sure to give you one. So come by and say hello, and I'll give you a little trinket for your troubles. And if you have something interesting to talk about, I'll have microphones with me because, as you would imagine, the reason that I'm attending NEAF is to hopefully talk to as many people as possible. So I'm going to be bringing some microphones along with me and just walking along the floor and talking to as many vendors as I can. I hope that some of the guys that I have been able to talk to on the show or even off the show, but regarding the show, are going to be there, because I would love to finally get a chance to meet them in person. Obviously a lot of the people that have been on the show I have met in person, but a lot of people I haven't. Like, I've never met Nico in person, and I'm hoping he'll be there. I'll get to meet Justin. I know he's going to be there. Nathan will be there. Wait, I don't know if Justin's going to be there, actually. I take that back. I'll have to ask him. I know Rick and Jeff are going to be there. Several listeners are going to be there. I won't name drop anyone because I don't want to put them out there, but the people I name dropped already are going to be there with their businesses. So that's why I'm sure they don't mind. Make sure that you stop by and say hello to Rick and Jeff at the Dark Dragons table. They will be there. They're also going to the imaging conference that takes place just before NEAF, apparently, which is for all the astrophotographers. I considered doing that as well. It's a much smaller gathering from what I understand, and much more, laser focused on imaging. I couldn't make it happen just because I couldn't make that work on my schedule. But I will be there for both days of NEAF, and I'm incredibly excited about it because this has been like a bucket list item for me for quite some time. And the fact that I get to go up and represent the podcast is just really, really cool. So please, if you see me, please say hello. You'll see me, the guy with long hair and the beard. I guess that's not very descriptive. It doesn't narrow it down much when we're talking about astronomers, but you'll know me if you see me. I'll have the microphones and the hat and the Astrocast shirt. So stop by and say hello. If you do see me, I would love to talk with you for a few. And just catch up. So super excited about that. That, like I say, that's coming up in April. So there will definitely be at least one episode from NEAF. Depending on the connections that I might make there, it might end up being several episodes. I certainly hope to get to meet a lot of people in the industry while I'm there and set up future talks with them, as well as just get a quick look at, what it is that they're currently working on as far as, cutting edge astrotech goes. It's going to be really cool to get hands on. I know they do a lot of buy, sell, trade up there too. I haven't even considered that yet, man. If I should bring some stuff and trade it, or maybe pick up something while I'm there, I'll definitely get some kind of tchotchke that says NEAF on it, because As you know, I'm a collector of pins and tchotchkes in general, so I'll definitely have to pick up something while I'm there. So that's kind of like the big announcement this week I posted about earlier on Facebook, that I had some really cool news to share with you guys. That's it. The Astrocast is attending in NEAF for the first time this year. So super duper happy about it, and can't wait to get there. So we haven't done a recommendation in a little while. Somebody told me the other day in a DM that, why haven't you done any recommendations this year, Rue? And I thought about it, and I was like, man, I haven't really done many recommendations. So I can't even remember the last time I did. I definitely have something I can recommend to all of you, though. I explained at the beginning of the show that I had cut my thumb really bad, so I wasn't able to use a controller. Luckily, I was still able to use my right hand pretty well. And I've got a wireless keyboard for my living room PC that has a trackpad built onto it. It's a Logitech. Love that keyboard. I've had it for like a decade or more. Anyway, a new game came out that is a turn-based game, which is exactly what you want to play when you don't have both your thumbs, because it doesn't matter how long it takes you to click on something. But luckily for me, it ended up being a really good game, and I'm kind of surprised that I got so hooked on it, because it's kind of a simple premise that is deceptively deep. But the production on it is so good. And my understanding is the creator of this game worked on it for years and years, kind of like Silksong, how it was, sitting in development for years and no one knew if it would actually come out. Anyway, the game in question is called Mewgenics. Mew like a cat. Meow, mew, right? Mewgenics. And it's basically a game where you collect cats and you breed cats, and the cats mutate, and then you breed those mutated cats, and then you take them out on adventures, 4 cats at a time, and you can assign different collars to the individual cats. You can have a mage, you can have a tank, you can have a cleric, you can have a thief. You get the idea. All the RPG roles are fulfilled, and you don't even have to assign a class if you don't want to. There's advantages to that as well. And anyway, it's a super fun turn-based strategy game. I've played quite a few of them over the years. I haven't played one in a while, though, because I don't know. Maybe there's some great ones that have come out in recent years, but I'm just unaware of them. This one is great, though. Like, I've already put quite a few nights into it, and I'm apparently only like 7% through according to my save file, even though I've played like an ungodly amount of hours already in that week. So it's definitely got a ton of content to unlock. And I will say it starts off a little bit slow for those first several hours, and you're kind of like, is this going anywhere? But if you stick with it, you'll very quickly realize, wait a minute, I'm getting lots of new moves and my cats are all mutating, and it gets really, really entertaining really fast. And another thing that I'll mention is the sound design in the game is just chef's kiss. It is top notch. And some of these songs that they have in this game will get stuck in your head for days. I find myself walking around the house just singing this one song. Even my wife was singing it. It's that catchy. So definitely check out Mewgenics. I'm playing it on Steam on PC. I think it's available on consoles as well, but definitely on Steam and PC. So check that out if you are part of the PC master race. And let's be honest, if you're an astrophotographer, you probably are. And I will also mention before we get out of here and wrap things up that the Discord is a wonderful place to be. We've had a lot of cool conversations in there as of late, and we actually had some new members join over the last few weeks. Eddie, I think I may have given you a shout out a couple of weeks ago, but I can't remember. So shout out to our new member, Eddie. And then we have another new member, Tony. Tony Fowler actually joined the group just 4 days ago. And welcome to the family there, Tony. Super happy to have you as part of the group. I hope everybody has been very welcoming to you. I think you, Eddie, and Greg are our last 3 new members to join. And it's super cool watching the community grow. We would certainly love to have anyone who's listening that isn't a member of the group. Please feel free to join. You can go to patreon.com/the Astrocast. and join today. We're actually doing a thing right now for members of the Patreon where if you have a really cool or funny or heartbreaking or loving story related to astronomy or astrophotography that you would like to share, I am encouraging members of the group to record those and send them in to me. And I'm going to pick the best ones and actually play them on the show. So if you've got a story like that that you would like to share with the world, please feel free to join us. And if you're already a member of the group and you're hearing this for the first time, please send me your recording. We're also going to do a like a live session next weekend where I'm going to be in the voice chat for our Discord. And, you know, if you feel better telling the story to me kind of, you know, quote unquote in person, then we can do it that way. So I'll be recording those stories for like a 2-hour session that we're going to do online, and, you know, give or take time depending on how many people actually show up. Obviously, I'm not going to say, sorry, we've hit the time limit, and not let someone tell their stories. So if you're interested in that, please feel free to support the show by going to patreon.com/the Astrocast. You can also support the show with any of our affiliate links. They're all in the show notes at the very top there. Big shout out to our sponsors at Dark Dragons Astronomy and our partners at Astro Peak Observatories. Both big reasons why we are able to do this show without any advertisements, which is very important to me because I hate advertisements. I would do anything to avoid them. So thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. Looks like we've got probably a pretty long episode, a little bit longer than an hour. So sorry again about not being there last week. You know, I'll blame myself for that mistake, but it'll never happen again. Not that specific one. I can promise you that. And just remember, if you've got a mandolin in your kitchen right now, go throw it away. And if anyone in the house gives you a hard time, you just say, sorry, man, Rue told me I had to throw away the mandolin because he said it would mutilate me rather than slice potato chips for my dogs. So thanks so much for tuning into the Astrocast this week. We will be back next week with a new episode. We've got some more interviews lined up with some very interesting people, and I can't wait to share those with you all. You can check us out at qcru.com or the astrocast.com. We also have merch for sale. If you haven't gotten a t-shirt or a hat yet, that's the place to do it. Check out the astrocast.com. And I will make sure that those get shipped out the same day for you. So thanks so much for tuning into this week's episode of the Astrocast. I am your host, Rue, and as always, clear skies.
Wednesday evening, the feed goes live. Rue's voice cuts through the dark like a 135. From backyard scopes to mountain peaks, we're all tuned in, no time to sleep. Red dot finders, coma correctors gain. He breaks it down like it's simple, never pain. Comets rising, planets in the frame.